If you're like me and you're in real estate and you think, why in the world am I chasing this money all the time? We have a way for money to chase you. Buddies, that is the secret sauce of everything that you want. How can you get money to work for you so you don't work for money? It's all about rentals today. And we're talking with Edward Stroud, Big Ed from Kansas City, Missouri, kind of outside of Kansas City, but I'm going to say Kansas City. It's easiest for all of us. Ed is a friend. He's a mastermind client. He's somebody who I deeply respect, and he is my go-to guy whenever I have rental questions. Ed, my man, thanks for joining us. So glad to have you here.
Appreciate it, Eric. And yeah, you're everything that I am to you. You are double that to me, buddy. So I appreciate it.
That's kind of you. This is a bromance already happening. Folks, welcome to the bromance. Is a special time. Ed, we're going to talk about all things rental, but let's talk about the things that really matter first. Let's talk about your family, those people that surround you and put up with you all the time.
Yeah, right. So came from a small family, and mom and dad, no real brothers and sisters. My dad had some half siblings that I didn't really get to know very well, but so mom and dad's passed, and so I'm married to Ashley Stroud, my wife, and we have 3 beautiful kids, and that's really our family. Her mother's still living, but I've got a 13-year-old coming up on an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old, 2 boys and a girl, and they're my world. They're everything.
Mm-hmm. And the reason why we have to talk about family is not only is it the foundation of everything, but it is the education that you received, especially from your old man, that really was the catalyst for a lot of this. I want to give people the teaser of why to stick around, why this matters a lot. Ed, you own how many doors right now for rental properties?
We're a little over 200 with the goal of 50 a year up until the next. So when I'm 55, I want to own 500 doors. So.
And how old are you right now, Ed?
48. I'll be 49 next week.
Oh, what's your birthday?
March 3rd.
I'm March 1st. Oh, look at this.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, everyone. Yeah, welcome
I'll
to this.
send you a message. You can send me a message.
That's right. Oh man, I can't wait. So you have 6 years to get to 500 doors. You're over 200 doors already. When did you start investing in real estate?
So
right now, here's what I know. Some people think it's too late. I can't get there. It's too late. The ship has sailed, and I doubt that's true.
Well, I definitely don't fit the I started late. I probably got focused late, but my father invested early on in some rental properties. Bought my first rental property at age 13. My father was the one who pushed.
Okay, let's pause for a moment and everybody be like, okay, what a weirdo Ed Stroud is to buy his first investment property at 13. But what vision your dad had for your life and for your future. So exactly. I interjected rudely. Keep going.
No, you're fine, buddy. That's perfect. Yeah, I totally agree. So again, I tell everybody the story that at 13, did I say, oh gosh, I'm ready to buy my first rental property? No. Did my dad say, gosh, he's such a mature child, I'm going to let him buy a first property? No. I think my dad, looking back, and now as I look forward with my brand new 13-year-old as of less than a week ago, what is it that my dad was trying to teach me? And it was to understand credit score at an early age, because at 18, everybody screws their credit scores up. It was to understand how to make money work for you and to see investments work for you, how to read a P&L, how to understand business. And he was a business person, and he wanted me to understand that at an early age.
What did your dad do for a living?
You know, before I was 5 years old, so probably around 4 and before, my dad drove trucks all his life. And the last truck he owned would break down all the time, and it just put our family, we were super poor. I don't remember that because I was 4, right? At 4, you're super rich, doesn't matter. But I just remember hearing the stories, my mom and dad talking, that my dad called her and said, you know what, this truck will never break another soul in its entire life. And he took a torch and cut it in half, and he was done with trucking at that moment. So.
And what did he get into then? Because you said he was a businessman.
Yeah, so he just went into, he started a handyman service. He started getting some postal routes. You could bid on postal routes and put trucks in there. And run those. Then he started buying property, he liked bars. He liked owning a few bars here and there. I think he liked the cash side of that more than anything. I'm not saying he didn't pay taxes. I'm just saying. Uh, but I just think he's a lot like me, or I'm a lot like him, I should say, that a lot of different things intrigue me. I think the difference between me and him is he would start everything and then he would push it off to my mom and he'd go start something else, where I've had to stay and actually make sure I get the right leverage under us and get the management piece and the systems. My dad was not a systems guy. That's what I do know about him, but he had great vision, for sure.
Well, I want to give some folks perspective. Ed got started when he was 13 years old. And so obviously that has built a pretty impressive portfolio. And I'm going to ask a bunch of questions to dive into that. But I want to give you all perspective that here it is as we record this. It's February 22nd, 2022. And it was about 10 years ago to the day that I bought my first rental property. And I found a foreclosed property. I was scared to death. So I went out with a couple other partners. We each threw about 10 grand at it. And now I own about 60 doors. I haven't bought any properties outside of for my own personal use for like vacation rentals and that sort in the last couple of years, because I now am flipping and processing my money through, playing the Airbnb game some. I own about 60 doors, and this has all happened in 10 years. And so for those of you, I'm 41 now. Those of you that are thinking, man, am I too late to the game? You are not, not by any means. You can own a property in its entirety if you mortgage it and finance it in 15 years. And certainly faster than that if you'd like to, if you can get the right returns on it. But there are huge wins. And so, Ed, you've learned a lot over the last 35 almost years that you've been owning property. Before we talk strategy, I want to talk lessons. What are some key things that the people watching right now need to take away, being like, what are the have tos? What are the things that I need to do or need to know in order to protect myself?
Well, if I think the number one thing I see in investment property is people lead with their heart. So people, I hear the stories all the time from 1 and 2 and 3 owners. They own 1 or 2 or 3 properties, and this person's 3 months behind. Gosh, they're just good people. If you love that part of it, you need to leverage that out to somebody who can hold your properties accountable and your money accountable. If you can do that,
you have to be a soulless monster to be a property manager. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I don't know if you need to be soulless, but I think you definitely need to think about the business and not about the person more. It's your money you're giving away. If you're going to donate that money, why own property? Let's just go donate it somewhere else to something you're specifically wanting to donate it for, something that you're passionate about. But we've helped people before here and there. I'm not saying we kick everybody out if they're late within 3 days, but on the other opposite side is we have conversations around it, and if there's some history, it's just like anything. If there's a good history and they've had a moment in time, we're going to help them. If the history is this is what it's been, we're probably going to be done with them. But I think people lead with their heart.
You say give grace to the hiccup, not to the habit. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
So number one, certainly you can't lead with your heart. You have to be able to have some rigidity and some boundaries built up, because, man, an empathetic heart is a great thing to have, but you can get pretty steamrolled when it comes to investments.
Sure. I think another one would be, don't expect people to live in the house that you own the way you live in it. If you ever walk into one of your rental properties, I mean, when I met my wife and she started getting involved, she would walk into these places and she'd be like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, calm down. They're not tearing it up. They're not going to live the way we do. And that, what I found over time is that could be a $50,000 house. That could also be a $400,000 house. People don't all live the same. So really we're looking for, are they hurting or damaging our property, and being able to check on that property, make sure it's going to be okay. That's a big piece too.
That's a really big deal. Ed, I'm gonna throw a bunch of questions at you. If somebody owns 0 properties right now, what are their steps that they should take in order to actually make this happen? if they want to get into the rental game.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of questions that go into play. Number one, you got to do what you tell, I assume most of the people on this is in the real estate world, in the real estate
Most we have some. My financial manager buddy of mine is on this right now, and lots of people watching the replay on YouTube. So
okay.
yeah, most are in real estate.
Yeah, so the first thing I'd say is what you actually explain to your clients is be prepared. So you need to have the conversations around who's going to manage the property. Are you going to manage the property? What's that going to take? You need to know all that before you start. You need to have
and what do you think that somebody should self-manage a property, or should you hire a property manager?
I think everybody's different, and I think every situation's different. I think good property management companies are hard to find sometimes from everywhere I see. So that's why we started our own, because I wasn't about to give all my investments up to somebody that doesn't manage their properties right.
And you're charging, if I was in Kansas City, you're charging me what, 7 to 10% for a property management fee?
10% typically, yeah, 10%. Yeah. And I charge myself a little less, of course, because it's my company, but
right. I mean, you're just moving money from one pocket to the other.
That's exactly right.
Exactly right. I had a property manager that charged me 5% and only charged me when the property was occupied, and it was really great until I realized I got what I paid for.
Right.
And massive deferred maintenance. Such a wonderful woman, but massive deferred maintenance and vacancies that were really painful. So,
yeah, I think the big thing is on the financing side, really understanding what you can do to finance. And I think a lot of people don't think they have the means to finance right away when maybe they do. We talk to a lot of people about how they can tap in if they so choose. I know a lot of people freak out about this, but a lot of people have equity in their homes, and they could tap in and take that equity and have it actually working for them and not just sitting there doing nothing. And I think that's kind of interesting. If you go get a HELOC loan, use that as your down payment, use that as the buy, depending on the situation. I think.
So you're saying you're saying that people don't have to come to the table with 20 or 30% from their own hard cash. They can pull from the property or properties that they already own, and they can pull that equity, right?
Definitely.
Will most lenders do this, Ed?
I think some lenders will. I would never say most, because lenders in my world are funny. My dad taught me early on, this is probably another good lesson my dad taught me early on, is to have multiple bankers, don't have one, because banks look at different properties and different things differently. So what fits one bank may not fit the other two banks. So I always like to know the niche that my banks like, so I can think about that when I'm buying and know that that's going to fit a specific niche. But you got to take time to learn that, obviously.
Right. Obviously, you need to forge these relationships. I want to make sure I've heard the right stuff so far. Is you need to have a strategy. Are you going to manage it, or is somebody else going to? You need to have a great relationship with a lender, and you have financing options. You don't have to put down 20 or 30% of your liquid cash. You can put that down through some assets that you maybe already have. But of course, talking to your lenders are going to give you the creative options.
Yeah.
What else do people need to know?
I think you need to know and understand the market. I think you need to understand what the value of property is, number one, whether it's multifamily, single family, or commercial, if that's where you're headed. Knowing and researching and seeing what property's doing. As real estate agents, we do this every day, right? But if you're not in the real estate business, you need to be watching that through something. What are the comps out there? What are things selling for? What's the market doing? Just understanding that market.
Ed, are you buying all local, or are you buying in areas like Fargo, North Dakota, which is lovely?
Are you trying to sell me something right now?
Give me a moment, I'll get there. Yeah.
So I would say this. I'd say that our property management company is our biggest asset when it comes to buying property, because we have the systems and controls in place that I'm comfortable with. We've not bought outside except for Airbnbs, and we still manage those here. We've bought some Airbnbs down in Arkansas because that's where one of our offices is at. So it just seems like where I'm at in the real estate business, I want to be out in the rental business or Airbnb business as well.
So we're going to talk about the short-term rental game in a bit, but
Sure.
I want to stay on these long-term rentals. So you're buying in an area where you know and understand, you know the real estate value, and if you are expanding from there, it's still an area that you have interest in as opposed to just financial interest in. Is that right?
Right. Right. And
Okay.
I think the last one that I've come up with in my brain, you may have some more, Eric, so definitely share. The other thing is understanding the rental market. So not only understanding what the property values are and how to buy and what that value is going to do, but now to understand what it's truly going to rent for, and to understand that I'm not just guessing and saying, gosh, I think I'll get $1,000 out of it. Well, I missed it by $200. Now I'm not profitable anymore, maybe. So I think really paying attention to what's out there and what the income is on it for sure.
Mhm. Uh, Ed, what was your experience through COVID, especially when we had so many people that maybe weren't paying bills and going through there were moratoriums that didn't allow you to evict folks. Like, what was your experience through that? Because I'd imagine having 200 doors could have created a whole lot of hair loss.
It was scary, but early on we found people were continuing to pay. We had some older properties, maybe some lower rent properties that we had a couple people get behind on. And ultimately one of them I think had to be let go out of their lease and to move on. The other I think ended up getting some assistance and coming in and paying. And we have a few properties that get behind, a month or two sometimes, but we don't have a lot of it. And I think that's having a due diligence screening process up front. And
What is that due diligence screening process? What does it take to qualify? And folks, if there was something to take notes on, it's going to be this.
yeah, well, I think what you said originally, just we're looking for habits. What was your saying again? I liked your saying. I
Uh,
need to write that
well,
down.
I made it up on the spot, but I said
Sweet.
you're going to give grace to hiccups, but not to habits.
Yeah. So I think we're looking for habits immediately. Most people renting in the rental world, unless you're renting, high end property, most of them, their credit scores are probably going to be hurting a little bit, maybe in the 500s, not, I don't want the 300s or 400s, but they may be really hurting. And that may be a whole nother topic. But if they're just hurting a little bit on the credit score side, but they're showing a history of payments, I want to know their rental history. I want to know and be able to talk to somebody about it. You can't say I lived with grandma, because grandma's probably going to say all great things about you. So you need to live where there's accountability being held, and that we can tap into that and understand, did they take care of the place? Were they a problem? Did they pay on time? So we need a couple years at least. We look for any type of bills they're paying. If we can qualify them to say, hey, yes, they've done a good job paying their bills, taking care of stuff. And then we really don't do hardly any animals, if any. We'll make an exception out there once in a great while, but man, people with dogs and cats, if there is a history where I just know these people and they've done amazing, they're just clean people, I might make an exception once a year is probably what it comes down to. But I don't want people that can't take care of themselves. Number one, they're not going to take care of their animals inside my place, and I just want to make sure that our property is protected. That's one of the biggest things we have to do, is protect our property. That's our asset, right?
Yeah. Now, if somebody has a service animal and a note from a doctor, you don't really have a leg to stand on with that, right?
You don't. The good thing for us is we've got a lot of different applicants coming in. So even though we can't, discriminate against that, we still are looking for the best possible candidate. And we've got a couple out there that have service dogs, and we inspect them a few more times a year just because of that. That doesn't give them the right to tear up your property, right?
Mhm, mhm. So I want to make sure I heard this correctly. You want to find somebody who has healthy habits, somebody who has at least 2 years of rental history, a credit score of over 500, and no pets. Am I missing anything on who you try to qualify?
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, quite honestly, I don't qualify them anymore, but I'm
Right?
pretty
Well, your
sure,
company does, yeah.
yeah, but I'm pretty sure that's our main standards. I mean, there's
What,
exceptions out there.
what's your take on felons and people who have a criminal history?
Again, it's all about the history in the last 2 years. That's what I'm looking for. If they just got out with no history, I'm probably, that's my standard. I probably wouldn't put them in there.
Mhm.
Hey, I got a job last month, just got out of prison. What do you do? I have no history to go off of.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And to each their own on this too. I know that
yeah, for sure.
everybody's going to have their different stances on this, but I think that you have a track record of being successful with this, Ed, and so that's what people want to lean from. Have you played with your properties? Have you played the refinance game over and over and over again, taking so much cash from it, and so you're always carrying notes and loans, or have you used this as like a savings account that you don't touch it and you just have it accrue?
Yeah, so I would say early on, I would refi some stuff to get in a better position to either do a little bit of maintenance, that bigger maintenance items, and to purchase more. Now I'm in a position where I've got lines of credit at the bank where I can just buy it immediately, then refi it off. Uh, Depending on where you're at and with your bankers and what they do, you know, there I coached three people from Eric's Summit group that actually wanted to do some investment coaching, and so I did that with three different people. And the one thing I think the biggest takeaways they had, one of the biggest takeaways was the fact that there's banks out there that will actually lend not on the not on with the 20% down and all that, but more of, hey, if it appraises here and the 20%'s here and you bought it right, you're not putting all that money down. You don't have to put the full 20% down, right?
Mm.
And I think that was a big wake up, especially in new construction right now. It usually appraises up a little further. So, I'm looking at banks that are going to basically not lend on what I bought it for. And the banks that say, hey, you bought it at this, so we're going to lend on that. I don't play that game. I buy with my line of credit, and I then I know if I bought it right, it should appraise here, and I may only have to put 3% down or no percent down, right? And I
Mhm.
like that because now I'm just letting my money work itself, and I'm not taking any cash out of my pocket at that point.
Yeah, my approach has been completely different than yours. And I want to show a stark contrast because there's not a right or wrong. It's just a different strategy.
Yep.
In 2012, when I decided to get investing in real estate, I said, this is going to, I don't have a 401k. I don't have a retirement plan. I simply want this to be the thing that puts my kids through college. And I said, a couple of houses are going to put my kids through college. And so I bought and I put down on our first property, it was a $90,000 place. We put down 30%. That's what our bank required. So we put down $27,000 in cash. And then with closing costs, we ended up being at 10 grand each. So we're like, okay, we're $30,000 into this property. Well, wouldn't you know it? I bought that property 10 years ago. My mortgage on it is now $30,000. The property is worth over $200,000. And so we're sitting with $170,000 in equity from our original $30,000 investment 10 years ago. So we have 6x that money essentially in 10 years. I hope you see and understand how money accrues in real estate. And I say this to investors, I say this to anyone else, is you have to understand that you make money in a couple of different ways. Is you make money because you pay down your mortgage every month. And so that's your savings account. And then you make money because the property appreciates. And so you're making double cash on this every month that you're owning a rental property. And I look at when this property is fully paid off in 5 years, because we did a 15-year mortgage on it, I'm going to be able to bring in $2,000 a month in rent. And then, of course, minus insurance and some property management fees and everything else. But that thing is going to cash flow for us $20,000 a year in positive cash at the same time in which that property is continuing to appreciate. And so the strategy I've taken every single time is I put down 20 to 30% of my own cold hard cash. And I'm not taking from any other properties. And so if you look at it, I now have a net worth of, I think it's over 5 million bucks, Ed, in my investment properties,
Nice.
just because I've used it as a savings account. And I got there not putting in, I mean, I probably put in a million,
Right.
maybe 1.5, and it's now worth 5.
Yeah.
So it for me, it's my savings account. Ed has assets that are still working for him as well. You look like you were ready to say something there, Ed, as I was.
Well, the only thing I was going to say is that only one thing that you said that I disagree with, and it's not a big disagreement. You didn't pay that mortgage down.
Nope.
Somebody else paid that mortgage down.
Yeah,
My
but
saying is, I love it when people buy me houses.
it is such a satisfactory game to play. But I will also tell you that Ed and I probably have some horror stories.
Oh yeah.
The tenant that didn't go right. I put somebody into a house at $1,500 a month in mortgage, and from day one they didn't pay. And then a couple months after that, COVID hit, and we couldn't. There was a eviction moratorium, so we couldn't evict anybody. And then when we actually were able to get them removed, they had some mental health issues. And so I have this empathetic heart that feels bad, but I also have this business savvy that says I got to deal with this layer of stuff. It was about 10 months. And so that's $15,000 in lost revenue right there. And then I had about $35,000 in damage to the house. So 50 grand. The house, by the way, was worth $90,000. So it doesn't always go swimmingly well where you make all this money, and sometimes it costs you years and years and years. Ed, I want to hear from you a horror story or a time of a lesson that people need to glean from, of something that you made as a wrong decision. I made a wrong decision because this person had a habit, and I bet on the story they told me, and
Right.
I bet wrong.
We've had them. I don't know all of them by any means. I watched my father. My father owned 100 rentals at one point. Now I didn't get any of those or anything, so I didn't get to start that way. But I had seen everything from us carrying, at the sheriff's department come in and putting their stuff out on the sidewalk, to people taking dog feces and spelling out bad words to my dad on the walls of his own house. I mean, I've seen some crazy stuff like that. Uh, you know, you would think, this is the thing that I think shocks a lot of people. You would think I've got, new townhomes that we built ourselves. They're less than a year old, and we put some tenants in there, and they had a good little history. I mean, maybe it wasn't exactly what we were looking for, but they definitely had a decent little history. But they tore the place up. I mean, $15,000 worth of damage. And what we found is a break in our system, because even on our nice houses, we need to inspect a little more, thinking that, somebody's spending $1,600 a month on rent, $1,800 a month. You would think they're responsible. They're going to take care of stuff. So I think that's probably our biggest horror story is, when you got a $50,000 house, you kind of expect some stuff. At a $350,000 house, you would think, gosh, they're going to take care of that a little better. Nope, not the case. Not the case.
Ed, one of our attendees here, Don, asked this question. What do you think is the best way to watch the rental market or research it, especially if it's not the market that you know?
Yeah. I think you got to act as a renter and go find out what it is you can get for what money, right? Whether that means acting like a renter and setting up appointments and actually physically going and look, what does $700 a month get me? What does $1,000 get me? Getting on some of the sites out there that have the rentals and just looking on a daily basis of what's available and how much does it rent for. So it's the same way we would do it on the real estate side. We're looking at sold comps to find out value of houses, right? We're trying to see what's things selling for and what's the commonalities between the houses. I think that's what you have to do. That's what I did, at least. I don't know if there's anything else you can do, Eric,
No, I think your advice is sound and lovely. Ed, let's talk about, how do you determine, let's say you do own a property and you want to maximize your value. Here's what I've learned in Fargo is I can't rent a house for more than maybe $1,700 a month. If that house is a $200,000 house, I can probably rent it for $1,500 to $1,700. If that house is a $250,000 house, I can probably rent it for 15 to 1700. If that house is a $350,000 house, I can probably rent it for 15 to 1700. And so we have a market cap here. I assume that's more unique to my area, but do you have a market cap of like areas in which you've seen the greatest demand, the greatest tenants, and that you've been able to get predictable cash from?
Uh, In St. Joe, I think it's a lot like Fargo. We know that there's some caps. I can't get, 2000 would definitely be the highest in St. Joe we'd get. You'll hear the one-offs of the doctor came to town, signed a 2-year contract. He's paying $3,000 to 3,500. But those are one-offs, and that's not what I want to bet on. I want to bet on that sweet spot. $1,000 a month is the sweet spot around here. 800 to 1,000, maybe $1,100. You're going to have
Let's get perspective. The average sales price in your market is what?
160, 170.
Okay, so that's for most people, that's a pretty low sales price. If somebody's watching here in Denver whose average sales price is 660, they're dealing with an interesting issue.
Yeah, definitely. So I think you got to understand where your sweet spot is, where things rent quickly. So if you're seeing, again, when you're tracking rental homes and you're actually looking at what they're priced at, you could even track how long they're staying on before they pop off, and kind of look at, are things renting quicker in these areas or in these values. I think that becomes another big piece of what you should look for. But I'm going to say 15 to 1700 is pretty darn close to, I've got some nice new townhomes. And what I found was when we built those, everybody would come and they'd say, oh my gosh, you can't rent this. I want it, because you can't find anything for this value. And that always made me push it up a little more each time they said that, because I didn't know I always test the market a little bit with my new stuff, especially. If I got 950 a month out of the last one, I'm going to see if I can get 1,000 now out of this new one. And at some point, the market will tell me no, and then I'll know what the top price is I can get, and then I'll know where to build more or buy more at that point.
I know that I've always been of the desire that I want it filled before I want to maximize my price. As an example, if you're like, man, if I hold at $1,400 a month in the next 60 days, somebody's going to come and grab that. But you could have got it filled at $1,300 a month right now. It's going to take you 2 years to make back just that rental difference price. Right. And then you have it vacant. And if it's vacant and it's a single family, that means you're paying the utilities, you're doing the lawn care, snow removal. And so that has been a strategy that has worked pretty well for me. Is I want it filled, especially if it's a single family, before I'm going to max. I always want to maximize that price, but if I have to choose, I'm going to choose to have it filled.
And I would tell you that if I had some single families spread out, I probably would try to do that as well. When you're, I'm unique, or maybe I'm not unique, but where I'm building the same thing over and over again, that's where I'm trying to maximize to figure out, if I'm building a bunch of duplexes in a certain area, I may try to say, all right, I know they're worth 900, but could I get 1,000? Could I get 1,100? So that's where I'll push that a little bit when I'm doing the same thing over and over again. I won't do that on just one-offs. One-offs, you gotta get it rented quick, especially single family. Yeah. Single family will eat your lunch because it's all or nothing. So.
Yeah, and that's been the majority of the 60 doors I own. 35 are single family, probably.
Yeah.
So let's talk single family, duplex, triplex, fourplex, 10plex, 100plex, commercial. What do you believe is the best strategy for somebody starting out? And what do you believe is the best strategy for someone long-term?
Wow. Definitely starting out, I think, here's what I would tell you. My favorite strategy, which not everybody can do, my favorite strategy, and I just did this with my marketing director of my company a year and a half ago. He came to me and said, hey, I want to move into this area because of the schools and all that. And I had lots in that area. And I said, let's do this. Instead of just selling your house and buying another house, let's sell your house and let's build you a nice townhome. 2 sides to the townhome, and you live in one side and let somebody else pay the majority of your rent on the other, but you continue to pay your rent like normal, and you'll build cash quick, and then you'll be in a different position. And that's exactly what they've done. And actually, he was just in my office a little bit ago and saying, all right, we're thinking we're ready for another. So I think it depends where you're at in life, but if you could put yourself in a position where you could live in a duplex townhome that you have both sides of, somebody can pay the majority of that for you, but you continue to still pay rent like you normally would. You'll build some cash quicker, and it'll put you in a different position and quickly.
And if this is your first property as well, you can get in and you can treat it as your primary residence. So what you're going to
Right.
get is you're going to get a 30-year note,
Right.
and you're
Lower
going to get it
interest.
with 3 or 5% down, right? So
Yeah. And lower interest rate typically, right?
yeah,
On your
yeah,
own.
no doubt.
So yeah, that's exactly right.
Now the strategy is sound. Let's ask this question: how do you find these deals, Ed? Because
Wow.
I think that a lot of times people love the idea, but have no idea. Like when I was single, I loved the idea of having a girlfriend, but finding that girlfriend was always more difficult than I expected. You know, how do you find these properties? What are some of the strategies that work for you?
Well, number one, I think just scanning every day. Myself, I'm on an e-alert just like my customers are. So I'm getting things sent to me on a daily basis. I'm looking at what the market's doing. But more importantly, I'm letting people know in my small town of 86, 89,000, I'm letting people know that I'm a buyer. I want to buy property. Uh, we do a little bit of marketing on we'll buy your property, of course, getting it out there, letting them know we're an iBuyer program, all that type of stuff. But I think it's just knowing people and letting people know. That's probably been my biggest resource. I don't have any special campaigns or anything I do. It's really just letting people know I'm looking and letting everybody know if you know somebody selling those properties. We will target we'll target areas that we know there's duplexes in. We might send some mailers out. We might, door knock and find out or maybe we have the landlord list already and we're in connection with those landlords because a lot of landlords will sell at some point. I just bought 30 doors in the last 6 months where it was a landlord who decided he was done and wanted to move on. And his brother lived in another duplex right there on about a street, basically a whole street of duplexes. And I just put the contract on his brother's because his brother's now moving out. So now we'll have all 16 duplexes, 32 doors. So yeah.
I want to give some perspective that there's single family homes, there's duplexes, triplexes, everything we talked about. There's also some unique opportunities with trailer parks. And I know it's not a sexy thing, but I have a buddy out of St. Louis who, at the age of, I think, 23 or 24, had a lady that he was working with. He was trying to buy like one lot. And through long and the short of it, he ended up buying an entire trailer park from her and now has compounded that. And now he's 34 years old. So he went from 22 to 34 years old. And they just sold 60% of their inventory for $35 million. And so to understand how much opportunity is out there, even with things like trailer parks, I could talk to you about self-storage as well and how much financial opportunity there is with that. You think about it, you can own I mean, you're pointing at it right now, you can own 1,000,000 square feet of real estate that doesn't have any plumbing, that doesn't take any staffing, and people are going to pay you almost the same square footage that they're going to pay for their own house.
We got 460 units on site.
It's the financial opportunities that are there are huge, and what most of you are waiting for right now is you're waiting for perfect.
Yeah.
And perfect isn't ever going to come around. You're waiting for all the stars to align. You need to find this. Ed, this would be my advice to folks. Then I want to talk about Airbnbs and then get your final thoughts.
Yeah, sure.
My advice for folks would be stop waiting for perfect. Take action and find something that is worth investing in. Work with somebody like Ed or myself or somebody that knows your market well, that can give you some sound advice on how to make sure your numbers are right, because your numbers are going to be unique to your strategy. And then just pull the trigger. Stop waiting for perfect, because perfect is never going to come around ever, ever, ever.
Fail fast, right? Get it over with and move on so you can get to the sweet spots and start really banking the money.
If it goes wrong, you just invested in your education.
Yep.
If it goes right, you look like a genius. And this market the last 2 years has made us all look smart.
Smarter
Uh,
than what we are some days.
yeah, that's right. Ed, you and I both play the Airbnb game. We play the short-term rental game, the Verbo game. And I have won bigly on it. I know you're winning bigly on it as well. So what would you share for this audience on how to play this short-term rental game?
I've been in it now a year. We've done very well with it so far. What I would say is this is me stepping in. I didn't step in with 10 or 15. I stepped in with one, then I grabbed a second, and I wanted to feel it out and understand it, because to me, Airbnb, if you're going to try to get into that market, now's the time. And the reason now's the time, because if you start in on that market right now and you go, wow, this isn't working, you can either look at switching it over to long-term investment or just sell it. You're probably not going to lose any money because this market's so hot. So if you're ever going to try it, now's the time to try it, I think.
Mm-hmm. And Ed has invested down in Arkansas where he has another office. And so that's a place where he travels to frequently. He's using it. And here's the strategy that you can know is if you're investing in a place that you travel to, well, guess what? If you reserve 14 days out of the year on that, you're able to buy it traditionally for 10% down. And then you're able to buy it on a better interest rate as well. If you're going with a traditional commercial note, and if it's a long-term rental, usually you're doing a commercial note, that's a base plus like 1 or 2% on top of that, and then a 15 or 20-year mortgage. And you have so many more options if you're actually doing a short-term rental. And I did that with my lake place. My lake place, I bought a $450,000 lake place, and then did some remodeling to it. And I only rented out in the summer and when we weren't there. I rented it out for 40 days in the summer, and then we were there the rest. After paying my mortgage, I think I made 20 or 30 grand of just like money I made from rentals and paid my entire mortgage. And then I got to stay there for free all year. So I think that strategy number one is you find places that you are going to be going to anyways, and then you can choose to invest. The other strategy is like I own a crappy 10-plex in Fargo, and I've converted 8 of those 10 units into Airbnbs. And who I get to stay is I'm finding travel nurses and construction workers, people that are getting per diems of like $75 or $100 per day, and they don't want to stay at the come on in. They want to stay at a place that has its own kitchen, that has its own privacy, and then they're shacking up as well. And so you throw a couple of beds in there. So I'm making money hand over fist on a 10-plex and some condos, and it's a pretty marvelous thing. So it works both for destination as well as in your own backyard.
Right. And I think just again, you got to go study that market. We went into Bella Vista and Bentonville, Arkansas, because Walmart's huge there. There's a lot of corporate travel coming in, and it just made it real easy. They were very Airbnb friendly, and they already had a lot of people coming in. So that was the market I wanted to test it in. I didn't want to test it in St. Joe, although I could. It'd be pretty easy. But there's an investment there. I mean, you sometimes forget on the Airbnb, you have to put all the stuff into it. So that's an extra 20.
And not just all the stuff, but like second sets of all the stuff.
Exactly.
Like you
Yeah,
don't
you
need
need
sheets,
two
you
or
need
three.
second, third sets of sheets.
So that's the thing. That's probably the variable that you need to think about if you're going to play into that game. You got to have a little more cash out typically on that part.
Yeah, there's a Netflix show called Stay Here, and it's a short little docu-series of people that are doing Airbnbs. And that for me was a really important guide to understand that people want pretty and the right aesthetics. And you just need to make it, honestly, it says HGTVS because you just need to make it look pretty more than you need to even make it functional.
And throw some stuff in there like pool tables and foosball tables, and they love all that kind of stuff. We got a hot tub and a pool table in one of them, and they go crazy over that stuff.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, things that you normally won't get at a hotel, or you're sitting with a loud kid at a hockey tournament. Ed, man, you are a wealth of knowledge. I want to give you final words and final thoughts on us. If there's anything you haven't said or something people needs to know, I want you to spill it. But folks, before Ed gives us the final nuggets, I want to tell you we have a couple opportunities for you. We have, I think it's next week or in 2 weeks, we are diving into continued things. My buddy Mike Novak in the next few days is doing this massive dive on how to get the buyer consultation at the highest level, and so we're going to help you out with that. And then we have another great one coming up for you as well. I'm forgetting what it is right now, but I know it's great. And then following that, we are in the middle right now of a Grow Your Team Bootcamp. If you have a team or you're looking to start a team, man, we have an exact blueprint for you. And so this bootcamp is a 4-week-long series. We're only 1 week in right now. I'm going to email you those details as soon as this is done. And if this is something you want to jump on, we can still get you thrown into the mix. But otherwise, this replay will be up at on our YouTube channel, our Hatch Coaching YouTube channel. And Ed, with all that being said, my dude, give us your final thoughts on what people need to know.
I think most people don't think about tomorrow, they think about today. And I think that's the biggest takeaway I've learned over the long-term rental game. Some of the coaching guys that I had on and were coaching, one of them said, why not flip more? And I said, if it's good enough for flip, it's probably good enough to hold. And it really becomes your financial, where you're at financially though, right? But I think the biggest thing is just think about the long-term game. Yeah, Social Security's out there and you've got a 401k and that'll be fine. But ultimately, can you do it better yourself? And that's what I tell everybody is, you know, my whole why was, how do I protect my family when I'm gone? And so if I die tomorrow, everything I have has life insurance on it that'll pay it off. And we've got a lot of equity in all our properties as well. I mean, a lot. But when they're all paid off, and hopefully that happens while I'm still here, of course, but when they're all paid off, you know, my question to my wife early on, because she didn't even understand the game, she told me to stop buying houses at one point when we first met. So, but the point being is, can you live on, right now, I think we're sitting somewhere around $250,000, $280,000 a month income. Now we have to pay a lot of that.
Say that one more time, but say it a little softer.
So $250,000, $280,000 a month income. So as those pay off, and when I'm 58, a big chunk are paid for, done. And so my question to my wife all the time is, can you live on that kind of money a month? Because if you can't, you married the wrong guy.
Oh my gosh.
So you got to think that long-term picture.
If you're looking for a house husband, I can be that for you too. That's pretty great.
So yeah, you just got to think long-term, and the long play is the hard play. But in all reality, just be steady, man. Just be steady with it. Continue to think about the big picture, and you know, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years. I don't care what it is, what your plan is. When you get there, you're going to be damn glad you did. And my family is going to live a great life, and my kids are going to have a great start. And I'm going to do everything I can to educate them on how to keep it and not lose it. That's my big play.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot to learn from you, Ed, and I'm so grateful for your time today. Folks, round of applause.
Thank
Ed
you.
Stroud, oh baby, St. Joe in Kansas City, Missouri, as well as Bentonville, Arkansas. You are prestige worldwide as far as I'm concerned. Folks, a couple webinars coming up. Make sure you register for those, as well as if we can help you over at Hatch Coaching, please let us know how. We're never here selling, we're always here showing. And man, look at that love come in for you.
I love it.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Folks, we are out of here. So until next time.
Thank you all.